And joining us right now, the Rothman Orthopedics guest line from InsideTheBirds.com, and we always refer to it as Inside the Birds Empire, Mr.
That's
Geoff.
a handsome-looking man right there. Look at that.
I was going to say stud. You are a stud of journalism. How about that?
I'll take it.
There you go. Geoff, also, you guys can check out Inside the Birds podcast. The latest episode just dropped, so make sure you guys check that out a little bit later on today. Moshe, I got to ask you this just right out of the gate. When it comes to this Eagles team, I think some people are getting a little scared. Some people are getting a little scared right now. How concerned should they be about the Eagles, A, clinching the top seed, and then when they get in the playoffs, what type of team will we see? Where are we at right now?
Yeah, be concerned. They're done. Pack it in. It's over.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining me, you bastard.
Breathe the hook.
Yeah, right. All right. Now I go to okay. Yeah.
Concern is fair because of injuries, I think. I'm not concerned that they are all of a sudden less of a team that they were when they won 13 of their first 14 games. I think that's real. I think the 53-man roster is very good, still will be. And I think you can directly attribute the last two losses. Look, the Dallas is a good team. They could have won that game. They turned the ball over 4 times. I think 4 times in that game. You know, obviously the game against New Orleans, not their best, and you wonder what it would have been like. I think it actually helped improve Jalen Hurts' candidacy for MVP because you realize the difference between even a good backup like Gardner and the type of year Jalen Hurts was having. But the two things that really give me some concern, more so for, I guess, if they get the first round bye, if they do beat the Giants, which I imagine that they'll still be able to do that, get the bye, and in the second round, is that the injury to Lane Johnson is a bad injury. That there's no way around that. And then the injury to Avonte Maddox, the toe injury, he's not on IR, but it's our understanding. It's you're hoping that maybe he'll get back for the NFC Championship game if he can make it. We've already seen and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, CJ Gardner-Johnson. I'd like to, if you're a fan, you want to hear that he's going to be back in the practice window this week. And that maybe he'd be even able to play. But those are 3 really significant injuries. You can overcome one, but each week this team has a pretty big injury. But the Lane one is tough, Mark. I mean, there's really not a player of his caliber, that you just put in there or even close. And when you play playoff games, you face great pass rushers. And we've seen games where the better team lost because the other team's pass rush was just too good, right? Like think about the Patriots against the Giants twice. Patriots probably the best team, Giants better pass rush. So in that regard, there is some concern for that.
Certainly. How would you evaluate Jack Driscoll and the way he played in his first start, filling in for Lane Johnson?
Yeah, I mean, he played like a backup. I don't think he's terrible. I mean, there have been some games we've seen Eagles where backup offensive tackles have come in and it's been a complete disaster. I think we all remember one in particular on a Sunday night versus the Giants many moon ago. That's not Jack Driscoll. He's technically much more sound, and he's a good, decent enough athlete. He's just not as strong, and he's clearly not a Lane Johnson caliber player. His anchor is an issue at times, and even when he's fighting, he'll get driven back into the quarterback at times, so he'll implode a pocket. That's why Jalen Hurts has made such a great stride this year, I think, in not running at the first sign of pressure. So that'll have to, if Jack Driscoll has to play right tackle, if Lane either makes it back and can't stay in the game or just never makes it back, you'll have to hope that Jalen Hurts can kind of like be patient with his right tackle because he's going to give up some pressures.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. You went to Winston Justice there and not Halapoulivaati Vaitai filling in for Lane Johnson the first time during Carson Wentz's rookie year, second year in the rookie year. I think it was his rookie year in the league.
Right. Actually, and then he had to fill in for Jason Peters when Peters was lost for the year. And so
That's right.
and if you remember, his first snap was a disaster. Ryan Kerrigan beat him around edge and just completely killed Carson Wentz on that play. And everybody thought it was a disaster. But Vaitai got better as the season went and wound up being the starting left tackle for the Super Bowl. So, yeah, that's amazing. A good example of a guy who, struggles, but you were able to overcome it because you had great 53 around him. And he wound up becoming a pretty decent linemen anyway. And,
Yeah.
and again, Driscoll's pretty decent. He's not a disaster, but when you get to the playoffs, you just got to make sure that you scheme it if things aren't going so great. You're
Sure.
helping them out.
Yeah, I remember Ryan Kerrigan ripping Wentz off the Wentz jersey during that first snap of the game. Now, who could forget it? Who could forget it? Now, when it comes to Cee Dee Duece, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Chauncey Johnson, Gardner Johnson, when it comes to him, are you expecting him to be activated this week? Do you think he will play in the season finale? What's your expectation there?
The word that we got was he was making progress. There was a chance that he would be activated into the 21-day practice window this week. So we'll see if that happens. If they do it, it would probably happen Wednesday today, right? So we'll see if that's the case. Now, they did that 2 weeks ago with Dallas Goedert. They activated him into the 21-day window, but he didn't play against the Bears in that first game where he was eligible to play. So we will see. I mean, so I'm just saying it's a good sign that if he's activated into the practice window, but it doesn't definitely mean he'll play. I think the important thing is getting him ready for the playoffs because clearly Jonathan Gannon does things a little bit differently when he has Reed Blankenship out there as far as protecting his defensive backs, not being as aggressive as we saw him be earlier in the year, playing a lot of zone until he's forced to play a little bit more man. I think he'd be more what the fans would hope for if he had CJ Gardner-Johnson in there.
Mm-hmm. Understood. The other thing is obviously it's with Jalen Hurts. And I have this theory, and I don't think it's that wild, that Jalen Hurts was healthy enough to play. If it was a playoff game, he would have played last week against the New Orleans Saints. Do you give it a percentage? Can you give it a percentage for me? How close do you think he was? And how much of this was we can beat the Saints with Gardner Minshew? We don't really need Jalen Hurts for this one. How would you weigh that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. The team clearly felt pretty early last week that he was not going to be healthy enough to play. That's why Minshew got most of the reps. They obviously had Jalen Hurts out there. They had him throwing a football a little bit. You always have to test not just that day's activity, but how the response is to that day's activity. The next day, is he sore? Is he able to do a lot? But it's my understanding he didn't do a whole lot of practice, even though he was out there and they were preparing Minshew to play. Now, your question is sort of twofold, though. If they were playing a playoff game, was he healthy enough to play? Well, he might have been healthy enough to play, but that's a kind of a low bar in some cases. People will play with a lot of injuries. The question is, how effective would he have been if he got hit a few times and landed on the shoulder? And, it's not just a shoulder. He's got a little bit of the collarbone issue going there. So I don't think it was just precaution. I think that they were also concerned about the level of play you're going to get, and then what would happen if he did take some hits. And you know what? I think that they'll still be concerned this week and they'll have to answer that question this week. But they've got, they have to win this game, and we'll see. I mean, it seems like it's trending toward Jalen Hurts playing, but I'm not going to sit here and give him 100%. Oh yeah, he's definitely playing. Let's see on Thursday if he's out on practice, because Wednesday's just a walkthrough day. Let's see if he's taking most of the reps or what the vibe is coming out from the team.
Hey man, you've been covering this team longer than I have. When it comes to the walkthrough, when did the walkthrough become like the estimated practice? We're estimating he would not have practice. When did that start? Because I feel like that's very recent.
Well, I feel like every year there's some kind of new wrinkle to how they practice or go about things that, that make me realize how old I really am, Mark. I mean, I'm like the guy who talks about, oh my God, they used to actually go to Lehigh and practice in the 2 hours in the morning and then practice 2 hours more in the afternoon. And then guys who were older than me when I first got on the beat were like, yeah, well, there used to be 7 preseason games and they used to have 3-a-day practices and there weren't off days. So, it gets lighter and lighter every year. It gets different every year. Now, the fascinating thing is this whole sports science program the Eagles are sure look good for the first 8-9 weeks of the season as far as soft tissue injuries are going, but over the last 3, 4, 5 weeks, not so much. But in fairness, being healthy really did help them start off 13-1 compared to some of the other teams they were facing.
Certainly. So I'm not asking you for a percentage, but right now, as we tape this on Tuesday night, are you somewhat confident Jalen Hurts will play in this game? Or do you think Gardner Minshew is going to get another start?
Well, I mean, I feel more confident in his ability to start, that he'll start this week than I did last week. I didn't think at all he was going to start last week. But again, I would not put that at like 100%, slam the door. He's definitely starting.
Understood. Again, it's early. We're taping this in the week, and we're asking that question now just because I know it's on everybody's mind. And then the last thing I want to ask you about as far as who's going to play and who's not going to play, what are the Giants doing here? What is Brian Dable doing? Is he actually going to start his starters? What is there to be gained for the New York Giants other than being spoiler to the Philadelphia Eagles?
It's always funny to listen to a guy like Dable like 5 minutes after a game and then the next day after, because he's a very like fired up and intense guy. And he was immediately after the game, he was asked, "Well, what are you going to do?" And he's like, "Oh, well, we're competitors. We come to play." Talking the big man tough talk. And then literally in his Monday press conference, all of a sudden it became, well, it's a process we talk about with our GM, and we have to do what's best for the team. So it literally went from like, I got this adrenaline pumping through my veins and we're going to go kill the Eagles on Sunday to, well, I think we'll probably wind up not playing our starter. I assumed based on his Monday talk, and we'll see as the week develops, that he's probably not, if he plays his starters, it's probably not going to be for all 4 quarters. But remember, Mark, the Giants are pretty beat up. Like, they're playing backups already installed, especially a wide receiver, offensive line in the secondary. So, I mean, it's not like there's going to be a huge differential here. It's just whether guys like Barkley and Jones wind up being out there.
Gotcha. Finally, when you do make it to the playoffs, and I am going to go ahead and predict the Eagles to win, a very early prediction for this weekend, but of course I'm going to pick the Birds. Are they? One of the things that's come up here is that one and done thing that's been surrounding them. Ryan Leaf even mentioned it, of all people, on Good Morning Football last week. It's been circulating now. They could be a one and done team here. Could that really happen? I know you got to wait to see who they play, but I mean, we still have to see a better version than what we've seen over the last couple of weeks. No.
I would think so. I mean, it depends on who your divisional round matchup is. I mean, let's say they get the 1 seed. The Bucks are locked into the 4th seed, right? And if the Eagles get the 1 seed, that locks the Cowboys, I think, into the 5th. So you get a Cowboys-Bucks 4-5 game. So if the Cowboys win, which, I feel like now the Cowboys would beat the Bucks. You never know. But if the Cowboys win, that's a lower seed winning. That means the Cowboys would be the most likely the team to play the Eagles in the divisional round. And the Cowboys are probably feeling good about that since they just beat the Eagles. And again, it comes down to Lane Johnson. He's going to try to play through a groin that's already torn. It's not just pain tolerance. It's also limited in your movement. Like, you just can't do certain things when you have a torn tendon, and then you run the risk of being able to tear it off the pelvis and make it an even worse surgery. And, not that the Eagles are a one-man team by any stretch of the means, but you know how good Lane Johnson is and how important it is to hold down the pass rushers and the ability to have 5 outlets on any play as opposed to 4, because you might need to keep a tight end in the block. So, one injury can kill you. And if Avonte Maddox back, that's another big one. So, I think that the playing field has leveled a little bit. The Eagles at one point seemed far ahead of anybody in the NFC, and the injuries have leveled the playing field, but I'd have a hard time seeing one and done, but I got to see who the matchup is first. You just never know.
That's all I needed to hear. You'd have a hard time seeing it. You're not sitting there expecting it like some of these Debbie Downers that are out there, Geoff.
Not expecting it.
By the way, you must be a happy man. Penn State, nice little bowl win there. Nice little victory. Nice little job there. You got to be feeling good about yourself.
Yeah, it was good. I was joking with Jason Avant the other day. Jason, of course, being a Michigan guy who was doing sideline radio for that game, as he's done all year for Michigan. I told him the other night, we were texting, I said, I'm watching the only good Big Ten team that's going to win a bowl game right now. So I got a good one in on him.
There you go.
I lost the bet earlier in the year when Penn State lost to Michigan. So on our pregame show, I had to sing Hail to the Victors at the end of the show. And that's a moment in my life that, it's on the internet, so it's forever, but I wish it would just go away.
Oh, I that is the first time hearing of that, and now I'm going to go find that. Thank you for telling me. Geoff, as always, man, what do you and Adam Kaplan have coming up on this episode of Inside the Birds?
Yeah, it's our middle of the week film breakdown episode. So if you want to know why Gardner Minshew struggled, if you want to know about, like you asked Jack Driscoll, what happened there, some good stuff on the wide receivers, though, when they did catch the ball. And if you really want to know what happened with the defense on the first drive compared to the rest of this, and this is all through sources we talked to, league personnel who watch the tape and give you a real thorough breakdown on what happened, then you listen to Inside the Birds.
There you go. Inside the Birds is part of Inside the Birds Empire, InsideTheBirds.com. Geoff Mosher, great catching up with you as always, my friend. Thanks so much.
You got it, Mark. Have a good one.
You as well. Geoff Mosher joining us on the Rothman Orthopedics guest line.